God is indicating there will be those who will demonstrate that they are spiritually dead. They're on their way to the full destruction or the full penalty of the law of violating the law of God. But let's talk about this death in a little different way. Go back to Ezekiel chapter 32. Ezekiel chapter 32. This is a passage that we've never looked at, and I'm not going to go into it in depth, but I just want to get a few verses here. The chapter is dealing with the grave, We read in verse 18. He's talking about various countries: Egypt, Ashur, Elam, Enoch, but it's all with the same emphasis. Son of man, verse 18, wail for the multitude of Egypt. Cast them down, even her, and the daughter of the famous nations, unto the nether parts of the earth. Now, nether is lower, the lower parts of the earth. Where is the grave? It's in the lower parts of the earth. You dig a hole and dig a grave, and that body is put down there, and it's covered over. It's in a pit, and that's why it says here that under the nether parts of the earth, with them that go down into the pit. Whom dost thou pass in beauty? Go down, and be thou laid with the uncircumcised. That's all the unsaved. They are pictured as being dead and in the grave. They shall fall in the midst of them that are slain by the sword. She is delivered to the sword. Draw her and all her multitudes. The strong and among the mighty shall speak to him out of the midst of hell. Hell is a word, grave. Out of the midst of the grave with them that help him. They are gone down. They lie uncircumcised. Lie where? In the grave, slain by the sword. Ashur is there and all her company. His graves are about him, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit, and her company is round about her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, which caused terror in the land of the living. There is Elam and all her multitude round about her graves, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, which are gone down uncircumcised into the nether, the lower parts of the earth, which caused their terror in the land of the living, yet have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit. And the whole chapter goes on and on and on about lying in the grave, and because this burial is the evidence, it is the proof of the wrath of God. Remember when Jesus was, and now I can see why Jesus, when he was by the tomb of the grave of his friend Lazarus, his friend Lazarus, in John 11, he was there, and as they came up to the grave, he wept, because that grave was underscoring that the wages of sin is death, and death is something that God has no pleasure in. He has no pleasure in the death of the wicked. Christ wept. He is the eternal God, and the fact that people have to die, he has no pleasure in that. But the law of God determines he must bring them to death, because that is the penalty for sin. The wages of sin is death. God has to carry out that law. And that is what is, in other words, the death or the burial is the evidence or the proof that the penalty of sin has been paid. Now, here we're talking about in Revelation, or in Ezekiel 39, about people who are burying people during the Great Tribulation period. It's during this 7th-month period that these passengers, these people who are the true believers, and they're going around to cleanse the land, and burying them. What in the world does that have to do with the Great Tribulation? That is not when the burying is going to take place. Well, but on the other hand, burying doesn't fit very well with the Day of Judgment either. It fits with the period before the Great Tribulation, the 13,000 years before. That's when people die and are buried, awaiting the time when they will be thrown out, where their bones or corpses or dust or whatever is left are thrown out on the first day of the Day of Judgment. And so can you see how confusing all of this is? But the fact is, God is using burial here in Ezekiel 39 to illustrate those who are guaranteed unsaved and will never come into heaven, will never have life. It is a figure. It is not the fact that they are literally burying anybody, but the fact that they're, as the peoples of the world are going through this time of test. We can begin to kind of lock this a little bit tighter together. During this period of 23 years, the world, and particularly the churches, are under this testing time. Remember, I will keep you from the hour of test. Why aren't the true believers being tested? Why aren't they being tested? Why aren't they? Well, let me explain. A test is like a temptation. That's a test. And so you are with your friends. They're not saved. You are saved. And you really are saved. You're really a true believer. And they say, you know, there's a movie in town. Oh, I remember this when I was a youngster, when they were just beginning to come out with these salacious, these wicked, sexy movies. There would be a movie house on the other side of town. And again, my friends would come to me and they'd say, you know, why don't we go and see that film, you know, pornographic it was nothing compared with what you can get on your TV today or on your website today. But today it's just, it's like everything else is that way. But in that day, that was a real temptation. And so they'd come and they'd say, you know, why don't we go? They knew it was bad. Oh, they knew if their parents knew, they would really get it in the neck. And so for them, they were tempted. But for a true believer is not tempted. You say, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why would I want to go there and see that garbage over there? There's no temptation for the true believer. The temptation is for those who are not saved. The same way, you know, when we read, for example, that the Bible now teaches that we can know the time of his return, and Christ is not coming as a thief in the night. For a true believer, that's not a test. They simply say, oh, show me where it is in the Bible. Oh, I see. There, that the Bible is the authority. And so they're not being tempted at all to believe that. But the person in the church who trusts the church and not the Bible, this is an enormous temptation, because he would like to believe it, maybe, but he can't believe it because he'd be going contrary to what his church believes, and so it becomes a test, a temptation. And so this is the way it is now with these tests, that they are coming to the unsaved, and many of them. Now remember, I'm going to get back to this other statement that I talked about a little while ago. It's we and Christ, not we alone. Can we know who are the true believers or not? No, we cannot know. God knows. And he knows the ones that they have failed the